Good morning, good afternoon, and if you're watching this late at night, good evening. This video is about social skills, social rules for living to make more friends. This is part of social emotional learning. Okay, what are we going to be looking at today? You can see the title here. We're going to be looking at social rules for living to make more friends, but we're going to be asking some questions, and we've got the inquiry questions, or the questions that we're going to be looking at on the next slide. So, how can I get along with people? What should I do when I meet new people? How can I make friends? How can I avoid conflicts with my peers? How can I keep my friends? How can I develop my friendships into friendships with a high level of connection and trust? How can I be a good friend to other people? This is part of social emotional learning. Here we go on. What are some qualities of a good friend? Now, there's two different ways of looking at this. What are your preferences? What do you believe? What do you value? What are your ideas and opinion about the qualities of a good friend? And then also consider the community around you. What does the community say? What is the opinion of your family, of the community around you, your school community? What do you learn from others about this topic of qualities of a good friend? Okay, if I met 10 new people, or if I was to go somewhere and meet these people, and was trying to decide who I should be friends with, or with whom I should be friends, to which qualities should I pay attention? What qualities are you looking for in a friend? What do you value? What's important to you? And then what is important to the community around you? Next, what do you know already? What have you learned from other classes and content areas? What have you learned from family? What have you learned from community? Well, from history class, socials class, you may have learned about the medieval code of chivalry. Respect and defend the weak is an example. Always and everywhere be right and good against evil. Now, number 3, love your country. We might be cautious about this one as Canadians. We might think about love your community as something that we might do as Canadians, or respect your community. There's different ways we might consider this at different levels. There's different extremism in this number 3, love your country, but there is some sense of valuing and respecting the accomplishments of your country. Well, as Canadians, we look at the truth and reconciliation of our country, the mistakes our country has made, as well as we love how our country is being willing to look at the problems and mistakes that our country has made. Okay, number 4, love. Oh, no. Never lie or go back on one words. It's another example from the medieval Knights Code of Chivalry. Now, this is just a sample. Okay, going on here. What have I learned from my family, community, religions, and others? Okay, so there's something called the Golden Rule that has something similar in many different religions. The idea is either don't do or do what is either good or bad in terms of what you would think would be good or bad for you, to think about how that what you do affects other people. So sometimes it's rephrased in the negative or the positive. Let's take a look at Judaism. What is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. This is the whole Torah. All the rest is commentary. So that's an example. So let's take a look at Buddhism here. Treat not others in ways that you would yourself would find hurtful. Okay, so there's examples. We could go through all of these, but for the sake of time, we're going to move on to First People's Principles of Learning. And I want to slow down here because this might be less familiar to you than the Golden Rule. If the Golden Rule is not familiar, you can Google that and research that further. Let's take a look at the First People's Principles of Learning. And not as many people have heard of these, so let's take a deep look at some of these. Okay, number 1 that we're going to look at is learning supports the well-being of the self, family, the community, the land, the spirits, and the ancestors. In particular, take a look at supports the well-being of the self, meaning yourself, but there's also a sense of otherness, supporting the well-being of others around you. And just consider that while we're looking at qualities of a friend, to go back and forth in your reflecting about what is good for you and what is good for your family and the community around you. Okay, next, learning is holistic, reflexive, reflective, experiential, and relational. Okay, so one of the things that we find in our tradition, when I say our tradition, at least my experience with the education system, is learning tends to be more about textbook style memorization of facts, with a few exceptions like, say, learning to drive a car, where with learning to drive a car, it's divided into written learning, which is tested by reading and a multiple choice test, and then an experiential part, which is can you drive a car with your driving test. Now that's sort of an example of experiential versus just written, but most of the learning is like that first phase of learning to drive a car where you read a book, you memorize the book, the information in it, and you take some tests to see if you can memorize and remember those facts in that book. Now that's academic learning, that's a traditional aspect of education. However, that piece alone doesn't show that you can actually drive a car. And that's the experiential piece about learning that is sometimes missed in academic traditions. Okay, so learning is holistic, reflective, experiential, and relational. There's a sense of doing it together with people. Okay, learning involves recognizing the consequences of one's actions. So there's something that we would probably call reflecting about how there's this intertwined of someone's actions affects yourself and other people. Okay, next, let's take a look at your task, your exciting, fun task that's going to be so incredibly fantastic and amazing. Step 1. You as an individual will brainstorm 2 lists. First, you'll be focusing on a list of qualities of a good friend and social rules. For that task, you're going to take a piece of paper, and you can see this piece of paper a little bit right here. It is a green piece of paper I'm holding up, and you're going to use something called a T-chart. You can quickly make it by folding your paper in half, what is called hot dog style, and then you can add lines with a ruler to create a T-chart, and then you'll have a title, Qualities of a Good Friend, and a title, Social Rules, and you can brainstorm those as an individual. That will be step 1. Step 2 of your task, well, you'll work in community in groups of 4 students to brainstorm more ideas, edit, decide which you value, and produce a poster with qualities of a good friend and social rules. In order to do this task, your group will elect the roles of leader, scribe, poster holder, and oral presenter. And step 3 of this task, your group will orally present your top 3 to 5 most important qualities of a good friend, and social rules. Alrighty, let's take a look at the example coming next. So the key of your task, it's about brainstorming. If you get stuck with brainstorming after about 5 minutes, then you could use Google to help you. But try it first, start with what it is, your opinion, your values. And then after you've gone through the process of trying to brainstorm on your own, then if you need to, only after you've tried on your own, then use Google to help you to look at the ideas of other people around the world. But you're going to divide your paper in half, and here's some examples. Say if you decide a quality of a good friend that you would like. I would like a friend who is honest. I would like a friend who is trustworthy. I want to be able to trust my friend. That's something I decide I value. Then maybe a rule that might go with that I might add to social rules is be honest. And then the key when I reflect on this, if I would like to have a friend who is honest and trustworthy, I could then reflect to think that maybe it's possible that other people in the world might also want to have a friend who is honest and trustworthy. And if that is something where I would like to make more friends, then I could consider, how could I be a good friend? Perhaps I could be a good friend by practicing and trying to live out be honest. Now, this may be not your primary value, but it might be something that you value. And then things is to go back then after we've taken a look at our social rules here and our qualities of a good friend, to look at our inquiry questions to see how they connect to our inquiry questions. Okay, so we take a look at our inquiry questions just to end or conclude. So, how can I get along with people? What should I do when I meet new people? How can I make friends? How can I avoid conflicts with my peers? How can I keep my friends? How can I develop my friendships into friendships with a high level connection and trust? How can I be a good friend to other people? So, with this one, how can I be a good friend to other people? Perhaps if I am a good friend to other people, people will want to be my friend because I am being a good friend to other people, and that is a strategy to make more friends. Hopefully, you will have many rich friendships in your life. Friendships, social skills, they overlap into so many areas of learning and life, including career education and leadership. A lot of these skills will overlap into other things that aren't so important. And a little aside story, once upon a time, I taught a student who was really, really good at social skills. Not so good at literacy and numeracy, but eventually he got a job as a salesperson in a company where he won an award for being one of the top salespeople in all of Canada through developing his social skills. So social skills can help you be a employee that is hired. Now, another story about this is once upon a time I got a job as a bus driver. The big boss of the bus driver, he said he wanted to hire people with customer service skills. That's what he was looking for. If you have customer service skills, he wanted to hire you. The way he figured it and explained it is that he thought he could teach people to drive a bus in about 2 to 3 weeks if they were already somebody who knew how to drive a car properly. He could teach them how to drive a bus in 2 to 3 weeks. However, he found it takes years to teach people customer service skills, and so that's something that it was very hard for him to help employees improve their customer service skills. So he wanted to hire people who already had a foundation in customer service skills. So this is something that can also help you be more employable in the future. All right, cut.